you want to do a 2-hour episode?
I mean, I thought we were going to get into comics at some point.
Are you a big comic book fan?
I told McLeod, I was like, oh man, we're going to talk about sex criminals. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, Matt Fraction and
Chip Zdarsky.
Yep, we had Chip Zdarsky on just a little bit ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. We're, you know who else we had on McLeod? We had Chad Stahelski.
Whoa.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
he was on. We talked about John Wick, obviously, and I asked him about Sandman Slim because he was tagged to do the movie.
Yeah. What did he say? Don't tell me. I'll
got too many projects. He had to step away from it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's still attached
super
to it on
bummed.
IMDb.
I was like,
Maybe
dude. He's like, I know they'll find another director to do it, but he's like, I just don't have the time. I think because they're getting ready to do more John Wicks.
Yeah, they greenlit like 2 more.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, Chip Zdarsky
bummer.
was on. He was awesome. He was a great guy. Sex Criminals is a crazy. He was like, we had no idea that comic was going to blow up like that.
Oh, the first volume, like it's so clear. It's kind of like Lost. They really didn't expect it to do anything, and it's so clear that they were just like packing stuff in. So like the jokes in the art, that Chip was kind of burying, and then once it actually like hit, and they decided to kind of explore mental health and whatnot, like it's always a good book. It became very like really fascinating, but it was like so much fun to just see like, oh, they had no idea this was coming. This is just two friends like, messing around.
They didn't think that they were going to sell any because one, it's called Sex Criminals. So they didn't think any comic book store was going to order anything, and even if they did, are they going to put a paper bag in front of it so you can't see it like it's a Penthouse or a Playboy in 7-Eleven, So
it made me laugh like so hard when because they had this like plan when they ended it and they just jumped to issue 69 to end it.
Oh yeah,
it was just like, you guys. Oh
yeah, it was genius. It really was.
Yeah. No, those.
What other books have you ever thought about writing your own comic, Adam?
I have.
I mean, because you're writing scripts and you're writing out movies, it feels like I don't want to say easy because none of this is ever easy. But
you would think so.
One thing that you could do is probably jump into that if you wanted.
I would love to. One of the things I really love about writing screenplays is, I love performance. Like you watch It Goes Ways. It's like, faces are kind of I think the face is the greatest special effect. And so I think if I were to write a book, I would have to find like the right artist. Right. And I mean, there are some great ones out there.
Oh yeah.
But like, it definitely appeals to me. I used to be, so I was like super into comics when I was growing up. And then I hit a stretch in my 30s where I was very poor. And so I couldn't afford any. Yeah. And now I'm getting to a point, like I read Tom King's run on Vision recently, which blew my mind. I just picked up his Mr. Miracle run, which is my next thing to read.
There's a lot of hatred on his Batman run right now with people. Not liking Tom King on Batman for some reason.
Which is sad because everything I've read in it, and I haven't read the whole run, but everything I read of it, I've really liked.
Honestly, I haven't been reading a lot. The only mainstream stuff I've read lately is the Savage Avengers, and that's because I'm a huge Conan fan.
Oh, okay.
So I've been
is that
a lot of the Marvel and DC stuff. I've backed quite a bit away from, and getting more into more independent stuff because it's just you just get more of a complete story.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have the like massive cruise liner of DC storytelling, Marvel still, where you have to like, review what the notes of 48 other books and make sure that you're not stepping on toes of the superior simple Simons of Spider-Man. Yeah, but that's always been. I mean, I remember in the 90s when like Wildstorm kicked off and like, and it was. I wasn't like a big Wildstorm kid because I just thought I just wasn't that kid. Yeah. But yeah, like that's where the fascinating stuff tends to kind of seep up. It's one of the things I kind of love about like culture in general is that music, film, comics, you kind of you use your like lower cost of entry, which is like why horror is such a huge thing for first time filmmakers. Splashing some blood on somebody isn't that expensive. And so like, but then if you do something that's of merit, if you do something that is, or not of merit, but like that's interesting, people will take notice because most of what's out there is kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, oh shit, they, you know, I mean, it's Mark Millar made his entire name on just like so did Alan Moore, but it's like, what if we didn't take superheroes seriously?
Yeah.
And that's revolutionary when the economy is built in.
Yep. Yeah. Kick-Ass is exactly that. And it's awesome for that.
Yeah.
You know, and Millar just sold his whole universe to Netflix but 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and what comes out of that because they basically own, I think, everything he's developed outside of Marvel.
My roommate in my 20s is now writing Spider-Man for Marvel, Nick Spencer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We were roommates for a few years. And like we met up in LA one of the last times I was out there, and he was just like, wow, that apartment had 100% success rate. Like, go us.
Score.
Yeah.
McLeod, are you into comic books at all, dude? I feel like I don't want to put you to sleep.
No, you're not. I'm not into anything anymore.
I'm into raising this baby.
Yeah, basically going to take care of.
No, I mean, like I collected Spawn when I was younger.
Yeah.
I still have like issues 1 through 52 or 60 on my cabinet nice. Over there. Adam introduced me to Sex Criminals, which I liked a lot, and Saga. I didn't finish Saga because it was like whenever I went back to the store, they didn't have it. Or
now they have all the trade paperbacks you can do.
Yeah.
Did I ever give you any Garth Ennis books to read, McLeod?
Oh,
Preacher and Hitman.
No.
Okay.
I mean,
Hitman is a movie like I want to make the Hitman movie. That's like my comic book that I really want to make.
You know, you did Saga. That's Brian K. Vaughan, and he also had another series which is amazing, which you guys could turn into a movie pretty easily. Is Why the Last Man?
That's becoming a TV show.
Yeah, they're going to make a TV show. But I'm just saying,
that's a great book. Yeah,
but if you haven't read that book, McLeod, you should check it out. Yeah,
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, why? Just the letter Y. Why the Last Man?
He has a pet monkey named Ampersand.
Yep.
I love it.
It's really good. You're gonna like
really
it.
Good. It was.
I can't believe I never told you that.
I think you maybe did. That's now that you said why the letter as opposed to why. I'm like, oh wait, this does sound familiar.
Another cool one that IDW is doing is written by David Boer and drawn by Drew Zucker. It's called Canto. Canto.
Canto.
Yeah, Canto. If you're if you grew up and you like The Wizard of Oz and you like the whole concept of Wizard of Oz, then you're gonna love Canto. It's not like Wizard of Oz in the fact that somebody goes to a different world. It's it's all within this one world, but it's awesome. It's a little clockwork knight, and his whole race is enslaved, and they take their hearts out, so they have no feelings, and they're against the law for them to have a name. And you meet Canto, and the girl that he has feelings for, even though he has no heart, gives him a name. And so he's original because he's the only clockwork knight with a name. And then it goes from there, and he goes on this whole adventure, and he's a tiny little guy, and it's like very much the little guy against the rest of the world, and it's nice. Done really well.
What do you think of
fantastic?
What do you think of the Boys adaptation on Amazon?
I loved it.
I haven't watched season 2 yet.
Yeah, but I thought it was great
because I love Garth, and I remember reading the book, and I think I got like 3 issues in. I was just like, I don't think I'm in the place for this.
Yeah,
you know what? It's so dark.
I didn't read the book.
Oh man,
and it's like his whole Punisher run for Punisher Born is ridiculous. It's way over the top. It's exactly how Punisher should be done.
Okay.
But I was the same way. Somebody gave me the Boys. I read like the first issue. Simon Pegg is on the cover, and he's an actual character within the book, and he's drawn to look just like Simon Pegg.
He's not actually Simon Pegg in the book. He's just Simon Pegg is the reference for it.
Is the reference.
I saw McLeod's face like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He's the guy. He is the character in the TV show that his girlfriend gets ran over by the speedster, and then he becomes that's Simon Pegg's character. But he's just, I don't know. I was the same way. I read the first issue and then I was like, I just couldn't get into it because it was all back issues. So I didn't want to go back and pay for a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's a terrible reason, but the TV show was fantastic. It makes me want to go back and read the book.
Yeah, they did a really good job. You mentioned, just because you mentioned his Punisher run, did you read his Punisher Kills the Marvel Universe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's
crazy.
That's a special little
bit
of nasty. Yeah.
Punisher Born, though, McLeod, they have it in trade paperback.
Uh-huh.
You should read it.
Cool.
It's just really good writing, and it's just freaking. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's just fanatic, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a scene. I'll give you one of the scenes that's crazy is it's the Vietnam War is going on. I think it's the Vietnam. Yeah, it's the Vietnam War is going on, and they overtake a village, right? Catches like one of his guys raping this girl. Okay. He shoots the girl. Punisher does. It says nobody's raping anybody, basically. And then 2 pages later, dude that was raping the girl is washing his face off in the river. And the moral guy, you know, the ethically moral guy in the group is coming out of the other side, and he sees Frank Castle come out of the jungle, walk up behind the dude and just put his boot on the guy's back of the guy's head and drowns him in the river. That's how this basically starts. And you just go from there. Jesus. It is nuts.
Garth, what's going on, buddy? What's going on?
Another good writer, too, to follow is Warren Ellis.
Yes. Oh, I cannot tell you how many times in the last 4 years I've been like, when did we just start living in Transmetropolitan? The news just was Transmetropolitan. I'm like, this isn't even trying.
Right. Oh, that's funny. Are you reading anything right now, Adam?
No, I'm not even watching anything right now. I've had so little bandwidth lately. I'm either watching stuff that I've already seen that she hasn't, or documentaries. But I will say, because we're on comics, the Watchmen series on HBO was one of the best things I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, Damon Lindelof, who I interviewed when I was back with Creative Screenwriting Magazine for Cowboys and Aliens, his opus, the PR campaign, like when he was doing all the Q&As and roundtables and everything, listening to him talk about the process of making Watchmen and how he like went in with like kind of the best of intentions and wanting to be the white savior, and managed to like surround himself with these like really brilliant and talented Black writers who were just like, I see what you're trying to do. And the thing is, you can't be our boss and also equal. So we're going to take the power in the room and you're going to have to take a back seat. And he was just like, but that doesn't. Oh, yeah. And so there was this really cool kind of personal growth journey he went on in making this show.
Yeah.
That I just find fascinating. He tried to get Ta-Nehisi Coates to like co-sign, and then Ta-Nehisi Coates was like on some show and he's like, yeah, all these like white people in Hollywood keep calling me up trying to get me to like validate their shows. And Damon's like, that's not what I was doing. Oh, wait a second. It is. Shit. Hold up. Yeah.
That was a good show. It's unfortunate they only do the one season.
Yeah, but it's perfect how it is. And if they want to come back in some years from now, HBO has told them that the door is open. So.
Yeah. It was shockingly good.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, man. Oh. I mean, even the whole thing with the cops wearing masks. At first, I thought, okay, this is a little corny. I don't know if I can get behind this. But then you learn why and how everything goes. It's like, okay, now it kind of all terrifyingly fits together.
I think like my favorite genre is this shouldn't work, but shit, it does.
Yeah.
And McLeod's had to hear me say this like a million times, but like it's my own process. I don't really start writing something until I think it doesn't work, because then I have a puzzle to solve.
Right.
So like I have an idea. Well, most ideas are very similar to something else that's already been done. Right. And it's so much easier to not make a movie than to make a movie, that if I have an idea that's similar to something else, I'm like, oh, that's cool. I can just pop some popcorn and watch it.
Right.
It's only when it's like Oh yeah, I haven't seen that before. I remember McLeod saying that about like when Muriel goes to her ghosts, to the corporate office.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, I haven't seen that, I don't think. Okay.
It's a great premise. It's a lot of fun. It's like, oh, well, this is different. You haven't seen anything like this. I mean, honestly, the only thing I could think of that was close to it is Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing. And I was like, and if that's the closest thing that I'm going to find of, well, it's been almost 40 years since Beetlejuice. So this is awesome,
Yeah. It's funny because like as soon as we started showing it, people were like, "Oh, so Beetlejuice was a huge inspiration." And I was like, "Nope, didn't think about it at all."
That's awesome.
I've watched that movie like a billion times, so it makes sense that it would just like be. I always say my brain is like a hard drive of every song I've ever heard and every movie I've ever seen, just on shuffle.
Well, things happen in weird ways. Are you guys familiar with Man-Thing, the comic character? Okay, so Man-Thing, Swamp Thing, right? Yeah. Swamp Thing and Man-Thing were literally created at the same time and were released within weeks of each other. And the thing that's even more funny is that Lin Wayne created the Swamp Thing, and his roommate was Jerry Conway, who created Man-Thing, and they were living together when they both introduced their characters. And a lot of it is the zeitgeist of just being together and watching the same things and having the same basic ideas and not talking with each other, but these things happened. And we had Jerry on, and Jerry Conway is awesome because he's the one who wrote the death of Gwen Stacy for Spider-Man, one of the most famous storylines of all time. He's a huge, huge guy in the comic book world for a long time. But we were lucky, and we were talking to him about that. And I said, is this true? Because you knew Lin Wayne? And he goes, it is true. And I'm the one who did Man-Thing. And I was his roommate. It was like, it kind of blew me away. And he's like, it just happens. And I really do think, like you were saying, you have all this stuff in your head that you've cataloged. And when you're writing, you bring things out, but subconsciously it's going to be what it is. And it's not, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It is not Beetlejuice by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the closest thing that I could think of.
Right.
When that scene happened, that's what I went back to is the lady with the cigarette in her throat.
Right. Yeah. I think there's like, I've seen stuff similar to it, but it's usually more angels.
Yeah.
Like the Adjustment Bureau or
Defending Your Life, Matter of Life and Death.
Yeah. Do you ever read the books, The Incarnations of Immortality?
No.
By an author named Piers Anthony. I think it's Piers.
I've heard that name.
Yeah, he wrote a ton of stuff in the 80s,
what?
70s, and 90s. Huh?
What's the title again?
He's 7 books in the series. It's called The Incarnations of Immortality.
Okay.
And the first book is On a Pale Horse. And it's about the office of death, where Zane is the main character. He's going to kill himself because his mom just died and nothing's going right in his life. So I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill myself. He's about ready to kill himself. He's got a gun to the head, and through the mirror walks death. And for some reason, he's able to move the gun, and he shoots death in the head, and he kills death. Fate comes walking out in the mirror and says, you just, you killed death. Because that's how the office of death is assumed. Each incarnation, death, fate, time, war, Satan, God, they're all offices that mortals hold until the next successor is assigned. You get what I'm saying? So you're immortal during the time of holding the office, and each one's successor is done differently. Death is done by the guy who kills them, is the one who takes over. And the whole book is about him going through. And there's a lot of the same kind of things. He goes to purgatory, and he's in purgatory, and it's all like a big office style cubicle. You know what I mean? Tons of bureaucracy to get.
This kind of sounds like my jam. Yeah.
Yeah. It's older. It's kind of weird. It has some very old world values. So you're like, really?
Like when we were, you asked like back at the beginning about the writing of it. And like the thing that I really love about writing is that you can kind of do whatever you want to do. You can play jazz. And especially when you're writing a movie, especially when you're writing a ghost movie, like them shits ain't real. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So so many people kind of keep to this. And in fact, the original ending of the movie kept with the idea that ghosts are here because of unfinished business.
Right.
And once I told my friend TT about it, we very quickly were like, oh, that ending does not work. And then it just became like, well, why not just explore like all this other stuff that's kind of I remember like telling McLeod about the ghost supervisor. And I was like, I was just making myself laugh. And like McLeod shows up like, dude, I've been reading all this like Voltaire stuff and I don't know what you're referencing. And I was like, I wasn't referencing anything. It was a joke. I'm so sorry you've been doing that.
I was trying to be a good actor and understand what my lines and why I was saying it. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
You're looking for deeper meaning in the surface joke.
Yeah. But like, that's kind of what I love about writing is like, especially if you get stuck and on this, there wasn't time to get stuck.
Yeah.
So like, just kind of chase whatever excites you. It's a thing that I think Tarantino did really well early on was like, you watch all these movies. I mean, I watched, I was the stereotypical cinema kid.
Yep. Me too.
We lived near a movie theater. So in the summer, especially, I would just walk over and go and watch Kindergarten Cop and Batman and everything else like 15 times all day.
Yep.
And so now like, it becomes, especially the thing I find really exciting about 21st century storytelling is that the audience has caught up and everyone, you watch a zombie movie and it's now a joke. Like, why don't you know you're in a zombie movie? There's zombies.
Yeah.
Say the word. And so like, okay, we're in a ghost movie. Let's be in a ghost movie. And there's nothing telling us that we can't go to where the ghosts live. And there's nothing telling us that we can't do this.
Yeah.
So, you just have to make sure that it's earned emotionally, that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's all suspension of disbelief is. Well, I'll follow you on your stupid nonsense. Just make sure that it feels true.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing a comic book right now called Supernatural Baby Detective. And it's the hardest.
SPD. Okay.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing to do is trying to keep it real. And it starts off with Frank Sullivan as a 60-some-year-old detective he's misogynistic. He wants it to be 1940. He's living in the 90s or the 2000s. I don't really decided what decade he's in, but he's in modern times. He's hunting down a serial child kidnapper called the Easter Bunny because he only operates during the months of April, takes kids by the sea. He does all this stuff. He starts to figure out where this guy is, right? Mm-hmm. Gets to the island, Easter Island, and he calls and to be fair, it's not Easter Island. It's this guy calls it Easter. Anyways, gets on the island and he instantly gets attacked by this guy and he dies. Gets axed to the head. As he dies, I have an entity whose name is Den, and it stands for something. And Den is like the great balancer of things. And he tells Frank, you're going to be reborn because I need you to figure this out. I can't go to your realm and fix this because if I step in your universe, it's dead. It's torn apart. So he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And so Den basically snaps his fingers and all of a sudden he's looking at a blue light. And as he comes out, he hears Den saying he gives him the gift of memory, and he's pulled out of the uterus, and the doctor has him up and he's born again, but he retains 100% of everything that he's already known and all his memories. It's already him. And so then, as the umbilical cord's getting pulled, he's being handed to his new mom and he whispers in her ear, "Sweetheart, my name is Frank. Don't get the birth certificate wrong." And he passes out because he was just murdered, met a god, and was born all in the same day. And that's my act one, basically. And then it goes into
that he already has like developed vocal cords. You can tell her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because it's just, I didn't get that deep into it. Maybe that's what I need to think about. You know what I mean? I wanted that moment of him being born, knowing that he is being born and freaking out and not knowing what to say. And then having his new mom, who he refuses to call mom. He keeps calling her Alice because he's like, that's not my mom. My mom is so-and-so. That's he calls her his his original mother. And then they go through the whole thing. And then I'm in the process of doing act 2 right now, but it's
nice.
It's a lot of fun, but I'm trying so desperately hard not to overthink what I'm doing and keeping it like real emotions, keeping it true, like you were just saying, but having this completely outlandish, ridiculous structure. But at the same time, you know, like real emotions, like I'm having him go through the fact of this lady takes care of me. She wipes me. She cleans up after me because he didn't have a choice, right? He can't control everything. She obviously loves me unconditionally. And so he's starting to have these feelings of that's his mom, you know, but he has all the memories of his childhood, of everything all the way up till he dies. So he's trying to, you have to think of him trying to wrestle this. And it's a funny concept, but at the same time, you put yourself in that situation, you'd be like, how do you kind of come to terms with all this shit that just happened?
Well, you even have something that, like, if you wanted to, like, if you know, you have the line of "My name is Frank, get it right," but like because babies are just crying, like he's saying that, but it's registering as wah, but you then have kind of the like. As we get older and we start to talk, he's finally able to articulate. So you have the like device of inner monologue, and then like he's finally able to communicate at some point.
I love it.
You got to get yourself a Macleod, because let me tell you how often Macleod gets messages from me where I'm like, "This is what we're doing," and he's like, "I'm like, I got this idea. It's weird and funny," and he's just like, "Yeah, but what does it have to do with the story and the characters?" And I'm like, "But it's weird and funny." You got to get yourself a Macleod. It's the best thing.
I got Johnny, my co-host, and I said it to him and he loved it. He goes, "I'm going to do some rewrites on it." And instantly I clammed up because I was like, no. Let me finish everything that I have in my head and get it all out. Yeah. Then we can go back and start doing that kind of stuff. Because if you start making changes now, it might completely change everything about what's in my head.
Yeah. Giving notes is really tricky in that regard, because you don't want to squash the creative process. You don't want to you want to, it's important to recognize where you are in the process and also how your creative partner operates. And, you know, it's really easy to shut someone down unnecessarily
and not even know that you're doing it.
Yeah, not know where you're doing it, and also just to be like, we're not there yet. Like the details that like aren't working yet, just they're bigger fish to fry. They're kind of more holistic. It's not worth getting into.
I had this last night. I wanted to send Macleod this thing that I've been working on, but I will sometimes send him things with just like scene placeholders, like you know, star, insert, you know, action scene, star, and I got to a point where I was like, I can do that, but he's not going to be able to react to the full data set that I want him to if I don't write this next scene.
Right.
Because this next scene, you know, it's the end of a sequence. And so even though I'm like, I want to see if this thing that I just wrote works, it's like, yeah, but it's an incomplete idea. And it has taken years to get to a point of like, I can't just send everything. Also, like, he has a baby now and a wife, and you know, like, he's a very busy person. So I can't send him everything as much as I want to, because I just respect his time too much.
Right.
So like,
you send him the really important things that you think, I need some feedback on this.
Or or it's basically just like, I can't send him anything that needs to be, that's been microwaved. It has to have been cooked.
Right.
You know, I like, you can't send placeholders anymore.
Right.
Which is not a thing I've actually said to you yet, but like, it's just been like a thing I've been realizing recently of like, I can't, you know, I need to like write it out. And that is the worst part of all of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, you know, with like a placeholder, it's when you receive that and it's like to give notes, it's like, and then here will go a really good scene, and you go, okay, well then I guess that's true. But
now that you've been doing this a while, are we going to see anything directed by or written by?
Probably not written by. I don't know. Probably not. I'm not a terribly motivated person.
Yeah.
I prefer help. I don't have a high enough opinion of like my perspective on the world to feel like it needs to hear what I think about it. I prefer helping people like Adam who I think have great ideas and who also just can't help it. Like they were put here to to create stories. And I so far I'm happy helping people with, put their mark on the world.
That's awesome.
Playing a tambourine.
I got to ask you, because while I have you on, how sad were you knowing that you were doing the last book?
Mm-hmm. I haven't narrated it yet. I think I do it.
It's coming though, right?
It's coming. Yeah.
And it's just when I say the last book, so people listening know, and I said at the beginning, but I have a feeling we'll probably cut this into two. Macleod does the voiceover or the narration work for Sandman Slim novels.
Yeah.
And I think that it's quite a few books in the series, and Kadri, the author, has said he's written the last one. And so it's coming for Macleod, but you've been doing it for so long, since what, 2013, 2012? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And now you're coming into end of an era, and the Sandman Slim fan base has grown exponentially in the last few years. So it's pretty cool, but at the same time, it's sad. Yeah,
it is. I respect the hell out of the choice.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that he's ending it. And starting another chapter. And I mean, like, I think Sandman Slim, probably to this day, it's sort of, it's kind of one of the series that made my career. Like, it's certainly one of the things I'm most known for.
That's how I met you.
Yeah, exactly.
I looked out, I'm like, I want to talk to Macleod, because this is your work on the books are awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not blowing smoke. They're really, really good. And I read the books first. Now, this might be terrible. I have a hard time reading the books. I just want to listen to you narrate the story, because it's so good and it's just so much fun, and they're unabridged. So it's not like you're missing anything.
Yeah.
You're getting the whole thing. And because you are the voice of Sandman. So it's like, yeah, there's James Stark. Every time you talk, I have a hard time not thinking that jump into a shadow and all of a sudden be like, I'm out of here, dude.
This guy talking about babies and wives and whatever.
But it's been cool, because now that I've seen you in a couple movies, now my whole thought process of the work that you're doing has changed dramatically.
Yeah, I've actually wanted to ask, like, having seen me, do movies and stuff, like, does it mess with your perception of listening to the book? Okay.
No, it hasn't. I mean, it's been good. Our first thing, Adam, you listened to those two things. Macleod and I and Johnny got along so well. I think I probably bugged him how much I instant message him on Twitter after that. We're just going back and forth. And every time he has something going on, I always want to congratulate him, because I think it's awesome the work you guys are doing. And so I always think, no, that's my buddy. Now I get to say, that's my friend that's doing all this stuff. And it's more fun now. It's been more fun watching you, and then knowing that what you're doing when you're recording James Stark and all the stuff that you've been doing, it's just heightened all the experience. Let's put it that way.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, like, when A Ghost Waits actually got distribution, one of the first thoughts I had was like, oh, good. I have a reason to call up Kenric and ask if I can do Spoiler Country.
Oh,
so,
dude, come on anytime you want. Are you kidding? We can talk about how you butter toast.
I mean, he butters toast very well.
Yeah. Now we can have
it's very sensuous.
I'm very thorough.
He's very thorough.
But now we can pull Adam in, because the two of you together is even more fun.
Like, yeah. I think part of, I mean, especially with the books, like, what was the one, Macleod? It was like a Star Trek parody. It was yes. Okay. So I was living with him when he was recording that, and it's the Star Trek parody, and there's all these alien races, and you've got the crew and everything, and he does all the voices.
Yeah.
And like, the coolest part of it, because we would prep it, and then he'd go and record, and he'd come home with like cookies from Porto's, because he was in Burbank, and like, his throat is just shredded.
Yeah.
But like, the smile on his face is so huge, because he was having so much fun. And like, it is working with Macleod. I don't always, working with your friends is something that, like our buddy Jamie Buckner, like, I remember him saying, like, all I want to do is make movies with my friends. He wants to be Kevin Smith Part 2.
Yeah.
And I would always say, I don't want to work with my friends. I want to work with skilled craftsmen who will make a good movie.
Yeah.
Working with MacLeod's kind of the best of that. Like,
could you get friend and he's skilled.
Yeah, because he's ridiculously talented as both an actor and a producer. But like, I sent him a message last week. I was out running some errands and I just had an idea, and it's like a 2-line idea. Just like, there's no meat on the bones yet, but like, I had a thought, and it's so cool. I can tell when something really sticks. Yeah. Because he's just like, oh yeah. It's because like, if it's not really sticking with him. Yeah. But like, if it's clear that I like it, he's like, okay, like walk me through a little bit, like explain. But if it's just like on its face, it's so cool. Where he's just like, yep, okay, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I've done something right. I made MacLeod. I got MacLeod. We're on the right track.
So people who've been listening, you know why I made the joke when you did table read. Did MacLeod do all the voices?
Yeah, he could.
He really could if he wanted to do it. So,
well, nah, I mean, audiobooks are a little different because of suspension of disbelief. You kind of like, there's this agreement that like, okay, we all know that you're going to be everybody and we're along for the ride. I think it's when you throw it into a different context sometimes, like the Steelheart, the Reckoners series, the guys at Nauvoo Games made a board game of it. And they had listened to the audiobooks as opposed to reading it. And, they said, hey, will you do a promo for us doing the voices from Steelheart? Is sort of like almost like an animated scene kind of thing. And, pushed out of the context of an audiobook, I was like, I really don't think you should have me voice Megan, the lead actress, because it's just in that world of like a dynamic scene, so that suspension of disbelief that I am a 20-year-old woman. It just doesn't sell, It's, as much versatility as I maybe have, like it's gonna hit the ear weird. And I actually ended up having my wife record that for me. I was just like, they were like, well, but we're really attached to all of your voices. And I was like, I understand that. And I appreciate that. Just listen to my wife do it.
Thank you, but no.
Because the context is it's going to be weird.
Did they like what she did? Did they like what she did?
Yeah. They ended up doing that.
That's nice. How are you recording, MacLeod? Are you still going into a studio, or did you set up a home studio yet? Nice. Little whisper room.
The whisper room.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, I just tilted my camera to show my 3.5 foot by 2.5 foot box that I step in for 6 to 8 hours a day.
How long did it take you to put that together?
Oh, there's a guy.
He came out and did it.
What's that?
Yeah, a guy come out and do it.
Yeah. Back at my old apartment. Oh, Jesus Christ. Why am I blanking on the name? Scott Peterson, I think.
Did you have that when you came on? I don't remember if you had that. I think you were going into the studio.
Oh yeah, I was. I've had it for years. I've refused to use it to record books in because one, I recently moved, so now I'm in an air conditioned home.
Nice.
But for years and years, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment with no AC, and it was tucked in a closet and
too hot
hot and miserable. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to record for 6 hours in there. Now it's manageable.
I got to get nerdy on you. What mic are you using?
I'm using a custom built Neumann U87 clone. Oh. So it's built by an engineer named Sebastian Zetten, who I worked with for many years, who sort of started doing a side hustle building microphones. And, he opened up an old Neumann U87 to see how it worked, and then, bought a kit and started building clones. And that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it sounds freaking fantastic.
Yeah, I've recorded Random House books on it. I've recorded Sandman Slim on it now.
That's awesome. And last nerdy question, what's your audio interface for it?
I use a Apollo Twin.
Oh, nice.
And then if I have to record locally, which every once in a while you have to just because internet connection or whatever.
Yeah.
Then I'll use I'll use Reaper as my DAW.
Yeah. That's digital audio workstation for you
digital audio workstation. Reaper is also what I did the sound design for A Ghost Waits on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's great. It's a super versatile program. There's tons of tutorials on the internet, and it's really affordable.
Yeah,
it's like $60 or something like that. Whereas Pro Tools is like $1,000, $2,000. So
Pro Tools is too much.
Yeah,
you know. And I like Adobe Premiere, but I the subscription model kills me.
Yeah,
you know. Because it's just like, oh my God, come on. I'd rather pay up front and get like a few, like give me 2 years of updates. And then if I want to roll with that for the rest of my life, then that should be on me. But
I
hate it, but I get it. It's easier for them to maintain, especially with Adobe had a lot of pirating issues. A ton.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then now
it does allow people to use the software, at an affordable price. If you're going to be editing for 6 months or 3 months or whatever, $20 a month, it's like you can manage that, as opposed to just one big pop of like $500 or $1,000, which most people can't chew. And also, especially if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to use this every year, every day. So yeah, but I'm with you. It's kind of the idea that it irks me. We edited Ghost Waits on Adobe Premiere, and it works. The cloud's kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, right now we're using, I mean, I hate the subscription model, like I just said, but we're using Descript, and Descript is amazing because you upload your audio to it. It automatically transcribes it. And then you say, right? I can literally highlight and then go delete. And it says, would you like to delete all the filler words? And it'll go through and find all the ums and uhs in the transcribed thing, and then delete them all out of the audio track automatically.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How is that not the biggest thing in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's huge. And then you can record yourself, right, saying some control words, and then you can literally write the script, and it's still, you can still tell it's not you, but it's pretty freaking close of sounding just like you saying it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know if you saw the tweet I tweeted today.
I did not. New phone. Remember?
New phone.
It really is.
Yeah. I'll just read it to you,
please.
Because it's apropos.
Nice.
What's the word for the creeping anxiety that one day your career will be taken by AI? And
the script.
The script. Yeah. I linked to an article that was like, read by, you can still tell it's mechanized, but when I listened to it, or when I started listening to it, my first thought was, this guy has a nice voice. Then I was like, oh, that was a weird choice. And then I was like, who's this guy's editor? And I was like, oh, it's not a guy. But the fact that it took me a second, I was like, uh-oh.
Oh, man, that's hilarious. Yeah, the script is nice because it's like literally for the audio. Like I'll put this into Final Cut, and I'll use Final Cut Pro on my Mac for all the video portions, and I'll edit it out through there. And then I'm nowhere near a video editor by any stretch. I'm still learning everything. So I don't know, like color correction is not a thing for me, because I don't know what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'd like to learn it, but I learn better by, like, if Adam was like this video editing whiz and him and I sat down, he said, this is how you do this is how you do that. I would learn in a heartbeat like that.
I taught myself to editing the movie.
Yeah.
And I definitely would not call myself an editor, although I am credited as one. But like, I appreciate that I now have like a language for when we work with real editors.
Right.
But when we had Ari do the color correction, I had tried to do that. I had tried my hand at it because it's the same reason I play Neil in the movie. I know I can afford myself and I'll be there on the day. And so, but I couldn't get it to work. And so, Ari did it in 2 days and it looks amazing. And I was talking to my friend Marisa shortly thereafter, and she taught herself how to run like electricity. She was redoing her apartment and like, wasn't happy with the job the guy did, and so taught herself, and she like redid the floors and the plumbing and the wiring and all kinds of crap. And so she was just like, well, could you have, do you think you could have taught yourself to do it? And I was like, maybe if I had like 3 years to just study and like experiment, but it's like part of the fun of this is the collaboration.
Yeah.
And working with people who they have a craft and they have worked at this craft for so long. I've been writing scripts for like 22 years now.
Wow.
And they were bad for a very long time.
Yeah.
But they were also like, this is, trying to write like Tarantino, trying to write like Sorkin, trying to write like Paul Thomas Anderson, trying to write like, and
that's how it works though.
Yeah, it is. And like something has to kind of click for you. Like for in my case, and I like to do this because more people should watch the movie. I had just seen this like modern romantic comedy where two people connect almost exclusively through pop culture.
Right.
And then like a couple days later, I saw Marty, which is like the Ernest Borgnine movie that Patty Chayefsky wrote in the 50s. And it's just these two middle-aged people who meet at a dance hall and they like, their souls connect. They don't talk about music or nothing. It's just like, this is what it is to live in the world when you've given up. Right. And I remember like watching that, like, okay, this is what I want to do. This feels timeless. And once that kind of unlocked a lot. Like, and then of course making, there's no film school like making a movie.
Right.
I didn't understand so much of what a director needed to do. I can't tell you how many times Cheney told me to like make a shot list for Mike. We never had time because there was no money. Mike couldn't take time off for prep. So there was no prep. We were finding shots on the day on set.
Right.
And blocking then. There was no rehearsal. There was never a script read. But like now if for like the next thing, I can sit down and kind of make a shot list or like something adjacent to one. Like I now have at least an understanding, but at the time I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need someone to hold my hand through this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like collaboration teaches you so much and it also like leads you to appreciate and respect, like an editor is someone whose mind just does that.
Right.
And it is magic. With the if I were to like sit down with a real editor, I think they would laugh me out of the booth because I don't do bins or anything or in color correction and sound and acting and everything. Like all of it that's how their brain works.
Yeah.
And respecting that and not wanting to like step on anyone, and like, well, let me tell you how your brain should be doing it. It's like, no. It's like my philosophy with actors. Your job is to know the characters better than I do.
Right.
So it's like, my job as the writer is to create a document that conveys the point of everything, the point of the scenes, the point of the story, and the point of the characters. But then you give that to your collaborators and say, please make this better.
Right.
Make me look smart.
Dude, I managed people for a long time in corporate America, and that's the one. That's my mantra all the time. Is I want to hire people that are smarter than me around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just,
that was Lincoln's thing, right? If you're dumb, surround yourself with smart people. If you're smart, surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And going back on what you were talking about, I think when you're trying to be the Quentin Tarantino or you're trying to be Mamet or whoever is the people that you look towards, it's the same thing with music, right? I don't know of any band that didn't start off as a cover band, not ones that were really good that end up writing their own stuff and coming up with their own style, steeped in the things that they already loved, and then then you kind of grow from there. Like Metallica, they were a garage band. That's all they did. Mm-hmm. And then they become like the biggest heavy metal act of the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah, and like, it's funny that you mentioned Metallica because that came up on a recent chat we did, and like I've been thinking about it since. That the question of authenticity in punk, in metal, in hip hop, you never really have it in pop. You never really, but horror has that. You know, there's a big question of authenticity in horror. And now you have this like elevated horror and like, is Silence of the Lambs horror? And it's like, of course it is. How is that not a horror movie?
Yeah.
But there's this like ghettoization that happens where they're like, well, if it's horror, then that horror is, cheap and it's a guy with a knife, and it's like, well, it can be, but like genre is opera.
Yeah.
You know, you have your metaphor. Like Friday the 13th is not just about a guy with a knife. Originally, Friday the 13th is about a woman who lost her kid and will never get over it, and like has taken it upon her to like take out anyone who might someday result in another kid dying.
It's a full murder mystery.
Generational trauma, and it's fascinating. But like, you have a lot of people who don't want to think about that because horror is boobs and blood.
Right.
You know, I was like, well, it can be.
You can,
and if that's all you have time for, then
yeah. It's an interesting. When it comes to art, it's so weird because it really doesn't evoke an emotion, whether you hate it or you love it, and then it's good. I mean, I've watched plenty of bad movies, but nobody goes in there thinking I'm going to make a bad movie unless there's a point to it. You know, it's
right.
No one's going, hey, I got a chance to write the Avenger or write the Fantastic Four. I think I'll just totally screw it up and not understand anything that I'm doing. No one does that.
I used to say you haven't seen bad movies unless you've programmed a festival, because the ones you're seeing at least got distribution.
Right.
And I have seen the undistributed crap of America. But then lately I've been watching Christmas movies to research a potential project.
Yeah.
And I watched one the other night that got distribution, and I made it 12 minutes in. And I stopped it and I said, I don't know if this is the worst movie I've ever seen, but that woman is definitely the worst actress I've ever seen. And I don't like, and it ruined visual media for a day. I couldn't watch anything else. I just had to like go listen to stuff. Cause like I watched Mr. Mayor afterwards and I was like, is Holly Hunter a bad actor? Or am I just like unable to appreciate this because that movie was such shit.
Well, you can rest assured there is never a time that Holly Hunter is a bad actress.
Yeah.
She is always on point.
Oh my God. And like, but I kind of went down a rabbit hole of researching this movie that I turned off. Like, how did this happen? And man, they were so genuine and they thought they were making the next great thing. And it's just like, whew, okay. But like, they're happy with it. I
talked to plenty of people, man. And then I want to go back and I want to watch it because I got excited talking to them. I didn't know the movie and I didn't know the writing or anything. And then you go back and you watch it and you're like, whoa, that was rough. And if you talk to somebody, you almost feel like you want to make it through the whole thing to give them to give them the benefit. And it's like, oh, that was a rough watch.
I have a story.
I had this kind of anxiety when I told you to maybe watch some of my movies.
Yeah.
But I have a story that I will tell you off mic.
Yeah, okay.
I will never tell it on the record.
Yeah. But the thing is with your guys' movie and with the other movies that I've seen you in, MacLeod, there's an honesty to them, and there's a difference that you actually know the craft and convey emotions on your face. I'm not kidding. I've seen some of these movies where it's like they just have a teleprompter off in the distance. And they're literally looks like they're just reading it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, like it's terrifying watching bad or even mediocre films. Like sometimes watching a mediocre film is even more terrifying because it's a fine line between like something being bad or mediocre or great. Like it's, and like that's often been like the sort of existential dread of making small films is for it's not they're bad until that moment when it clicks in and it's like it's great. And even when it's great, like I like remember sitting, like a lot of people have responded really positively to They Look Like People. I love it.
Yeah.
Like, but even when it was out and like we had won some awards, I remember sitting at like the 10th festival watching it with an audience and being like, fuck, this is a terrible movie. Why does anybody like it? Like, and it's not, I don't think that. I don't feel
the bag scene.
But was that
the bag scene with when you have the bag over it? Oh my God, dude, that was so freaky. I was like, no, you dude, kill it.
But like, like with the ghost waits, like there is, there's the assembly cut and then there's the next cut and the next cut. And like, it's over the course of years. So there's like big chunks of your life where you're like, I don't know if we can pull this off.
Yeah.
Like there was even like, we had a screening in Kentucky where where it was like at a place where I was like, this is good. Like, this is a good try. This is like, we can be really proud of the effort that we put into making this. And there's some stuff that's really great in here. I don't think it's a great movie yet. And then finally there was a week of like in August where like Adam came out to LA and we just buried ourselves in this intense editing schedule. And like, where we just we'd watch it at night. We'd do edits in the morning. We'd watch it at night. We'd edit it and like that. And then there was like this moment towards the end of that week where I was like, this is a good movie. Like this, like this is actually no excuses, no like, hey, good try. Hey, you didn't have a lot of resources. Hey, there was just where I was just like, no, this is worth it. Yeah. This is worthwhile. But it's like 5 years to get there. and like,
I think one reason that I think one reason that MacLeod and I work really well together is that neither one of us really have entitlement. Yeah. And we're both fairly humble people. So like the fact that, you know, we make a movie, it's not good because we made it.
Right.
You know, there is no like, we both are chasing things that we want, that we think are interesting, but it's also like, we're both more than willing to say like, I made this and it's not very good.
Right.
And that is a crucial thing. I know a lot of people who desperately want to make movies, but you read the scripts that they write and they're very clearly just like, they like movies and they want to make one and they have nothing to say.
Right.
And it is, to borrow a term I just read on an NBA blog that I was just like, that's perfect. And I'm stealing it, a consistent mediocrity. Whereas like with the two of us, you know, and because there's two of us, one of us can kind of have a moment of like, oh man, oh, we did it. We're geniuses. Great. And the other one can say, they're not there.
Yeah, like, we're not there yet. Yeah.
We did some good work, but we're not done. You know,
and then the same thing that I just watched.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, the difference between the reason the mediocre films, like, and even bad films are like so terrifying is it's like, it's the difference of 3 months of work or like one really hard week of work, you know? It's like, oh, that version of our movie 2 passes ago, if we had stopped, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I'll tell you one thing that like really annoys the living shit out of me is the idea of kill your darlings.
Mm-hmm.
Because people just throw that out like it's a fix it.
Yeah.
You know, oh, you got to kill your darlings. That means nothing outside of the moment because you made a movie. They're all your darlings.
Yeah.
At least at this level, like I made a movie. Are you kidding me? It's, you know, this is amazing. And then, you know, they're like, well, this doesn't work. And it's why, you know, we cut it together and then it was like, well, this doesn't work. And it was very apparent that it didn't work. Right. So we did the first set of pickups. The first set of pickups was supposed to be the only set of pickups. We went and shot it. I cut it in. We're working on that. We're sending it to people. We're getting notes.
Yeah.
And, you know, MacLeod and I were supposed to meet in Delaware for a week. My mom lives in Delaware, so we were going to stay at the house. And, like, they've got a pool and a beautiful deck, and it was just going to be a really nice week of work. And we had gotten some notes back, and there was this one consistent note that was constantly there.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like, it does this. It sets up this. Like, it has to be there. And finally you get through the wall of, like, oh, it doesn't work. It's there, but it doesn't work. Okay, we have to figure out a way that does that in a way that works.
Yeah.
That's in English, and like people can tell what you're doing. I don't think we're going to Delaware. I think we're going back to Cincinnati and shooting some more of this movie.
Yeah.
But like, if you just said, you know, because people would just say, yeah, you got to kill your darlings, and it's like you don't even know what you're talking about.
I have that issue all the time. It's hard for me sometimes to take, not that I can't take critical, you know, not that I can't take somebody telling me what I'm doing wrong or anything like that, but when it's something I'm creating and they don't see what I'm seeing, you know, but at the same time, I got to flip it, right? Because I'm having a hard time looking through their eyes of I'm presenting this to you to entertain you. And now I've created this whole section that you're like, I don't even get what's happening. I don't understand anything that's happening because there's all this other stuff that's in my head that makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, like note receiving is is truly a skill.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of, I think, psychological training. And luckily, you know, I've worked with people like Adam and Perry who are really good at receiving feedback.
Yeah, that's good.
But like there's a kind of common saying of like, it's what's the note behind the note?
Yeah.
Because sometimes like maybe somebody says something you disagree with or whatever, but there's a reason they said it.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to fix the thing they are trying to describe, but you do have to understand why they're feeling that way and why they're saying it. Like, it might be like, okay, like they want me to do this. I'm not going to do this, but the reason they want me to do this is because they're bored.
Right.
Like, and so I need to make sure they're not bored right here.
Right.
Or the reason they're saying this is because they're confused. So I just need to make sure they're not confused. I don't want to say the thing that they want me to say, but I do need to make sure that they understand what I'm trying to say.
Right. No,
it's also fun when people give you a note like it should be a different movie. Well, you're just like, okay, cool, thanks.
I mean, like I remember with like They Look Like People, like Evan and I came down so hard on Perry for the ending. Like we were just kind of like, you know what? Like, because do we want to say like what about this? What about this? And like Perry finally said, guys, I understand what you're saying. I hear you, and it all makes sense. I just need you to know that's just not the movie I want to make. Yeah. Like the ending you're telling me is a valid way to go. That's not what I want to do. Like that's not the movie I want to make. And that's not it's easy for that to become a cop out. Like, well, yeah, but it's important to like, sometimes those challenges force you to reckon with why you want something to be the way it is. Like you have to justify your choice, you know?
It's helped me become such a better communicator because now like I think about what obviously this isn't true of like if I've just met somebody.
Right.
But especially if I'm talking to somebody that I know well, I think about how I've observed them processing information, how they hear things, because I want to say something. I don't like to repeat myself, but I also don't want to offend anybody. And I don't, and it's like, it's really easy to say a half thought and then somebody comes at it from the wrong angle and they get the wrong half. And you're just like, but no, that's not what I was saying, but that's what they heard.
Right.
And I just learned that it's like, it's a lot easier to do the work up front and then say something in a clear manner than to say it immediately and then have to do an hour of like rescue work to find the point that you were trying to get at. Right. And by the time you're tired and you don't want to talk about it anymore.
It's like the scenario when you tell you're explaining a situation and somebody focuses on a minor detail.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with the whole scope of everything I'm talking about. Why are you talking about the nickel that should be you want it to be 1968 and I have 1952 on that? I don't care.
Yeah.
Like all this other thing going on.
With the ghost weights, like it's very important to me that I know the time, like, okay, this takes place over 3 days, and like, how do we convey that? So that's like the t-shirts and, sleeping and everything. But like, so that's important. But then if somebody says, what day is it? Like, well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he starts on a Monday or a Wednesday or
not the actual day.
Which again, like you try and ask yourself, what's the note behind the note? You say which you say like, okay, for some reason this person cares if it's Wednesday.
Right.
Why? Like are they bored?
You're not hearing the lapse of time.
Are they checking out? Like
yeah. And in cases like that, and a lot of time when I make the joke of like the note that is, it should be a different movie.
Right.
They're just telling on themselves. They're kind of, they watched it, but like people engage with just random shit. Yeah. We showed the movie here in Queens one night and a person like cornered me for a while about the pattern on the rug in the bedroom and what it represented. And I was like, it represented that it was there when we were shooting.
But it's cool that it spoke to them. And it is cool that it spoke to them and that they grabbed something out of it. It's so weird when it comes to movies and music and even books, what people gravitate to.
Yeah.
It's like something that's an afterthought to you. It's like, it was there, but to them, it meant everything.
Oh, it's the best.
Oh my God, are you kidding?
I love the fact, like, there's so much in this movie that, like, I didn't really, like, consciously intend.
Yeah.
That when somebody points out, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's there. Like, you know, there's a very strong anti-capitalist streak in this movie that I didn't intend in the writing, but like, you can ask anyone who spends any time with me. I am obsessed with late stage capitalism and the hazards that it has wrought.
Right.
So like, as soon as it was pointed out, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And like, that's so cool. Like, it's the, you know, it's like trying to consciously write subtext. Like, you can't.
Right.
You know, it just has to be there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, guys, we're coming up on
I got it. I got our 2-hour episode.
I'm so you're in there, man.
Welcome to Spoiler Country. Our guests today are
Exactly.
The script. Please delete half of what MacLeod said.
We'll do a couple of edits. One that I promise MacLeod I'll do because we don't need him getting in trouble for anything.
Right. Yes, best, but I suppose, that I keep.
He spoiled the next Spider-Man movie. Everybody who's wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah. You're looking at Peter Parker for his 30-year run. This is when you're married to Mary Jane. You guys have your kid.
Oh man, I would so make up a Spider-Man movie with MacLeod as Peter Parker. That would be amazing.
Actually, you could pull it off. I think you could do it, especially if you did like the Kraven's Last Hunt.
I feel like I missed my shot with Into the Spider-Verse.
Dude, that was so good.
Yeah,
that's a good movie. They did such a great job. Have you read that one, MacLeod? The Kraven's Last Hunt?
No, I haven't.
Dude, I think that's my favorite Spider-Man story ever told. It's about Kraven is a classic villain, and the cool thing is the guy who wrote it, his name is John DeMatteis. DeMatteis went to DC and pitched this as a story for Batman with the Joker, and they said no. And so a couple years go by, and he pitches it again, and they say no. So then he goes to Marvel, and J.M. DeMatteis he's written thousands of books, and like literally he's been in the game for like 40 years. So he goes to Marvel, and they're like, we love the storyline. We don't know where to put it. And he does a little bit of research, and he finds this not real well-known villain at the time named Kraven, who is a Russian big game hunter. That's his whole angle. And he loves it. He falls in love with this guy, and they write this whole story. And I swear to God, it's a Kraven story with Spider-Man as the second level character in it, really. Yeah. Because it's all about this guy's descent into madness and all the stuff that it rots. And I feel like it should have a huge impact on who Spider-Man is today, even though it's kind of been retconned, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it really is. It's like it's a superhero book that I tell people to read to try to get them into superheroes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that the success of WandaVision shows that we can be a lot more elastic with our approach to, especially now that Disney Plus is running and doing really well. Like, you know, you're making these movies to make $1 billion, and you know, you got around some edges to do that. But like something that's smaller, and especially if WandaVision is just going to be a 9-episode run and like that's it.
Yeah.
Like you can do Kraven's Last Hunt. You can do all these things that are just smaller.
Yep.
You know, that you tell 30 to 50 minutes at a time, and you're done.
Yep. Actually, Adam, you probably agree with me. I think for Kraven's Last Hunt, they really needed to do Tobey Maguire coming back as Spider-Man and Sam Raimi be the actual director. Because one, the fact that the weirdness of that story is right up at Raimi's alley.
Yeah.
You know, and two, he would be that older Spider-Man that gets affected by this. It's a wonderful story. I think it'd be cool to see. But speaking, I
also just want Sam Raimi directing more. I miss that guy so much.
He's doing the new Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
Very happy about that.
Yeah. And WandaVision goes right into Doctor Strange.
So like, I'll admit, like, I started watching WandaVision and I was just like, oh, I am here for this. Like the first 2 episodes. And then it stepped beyond the hex and started introducing all that. And I was like, don't care. Get back to the weird sitcom nostalgia, trying like as she's processing grief. Like get me back to that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And So it's kind of been like fits and starts watching it where I'm just like, I don't care. I don't believe a single word out of Kat Dennings' mouth. Like, can we please just talk about grief? It's amazing. I love this so much. And like Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany are doing serious, like, especially Paul Bettany, career work.
Oh, dude, they deserve Emmy nominations at the very least, because they're both doing some awesome stuff where you're just like, you're in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're in there and you're just like, I can't even begin that. One, they're taking this completely ridiculous outcome and this fantastical situation, you know, but they're so good and so serious in their roles that you're lost. You're in it. You're like everything else kind of goes away and you're like, oh yeah, I can totally believe what I'm seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, like I went in wanting it to be the Tom King Vision run.
Yeah.
But then like once it became like, oh, she's processing like, okay, that's interesting.
I heard like House of M, which I haven't read, but I guess a lot of it's coming from House of M.
Yeah. And then, my friend was telling me about like Agatha Harkness and all that stuff. And then he said like, and this is going to feed right into Multiverse of Madness. And I was just like, well, I mean,
I'm so excited for the multiverse because I liked the first Doctor Strange. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I watched the first time I watched it. It was cool. Second time I fell asleep. And I don't think I've been able to make it through it without falling asleep since.
I was bored.
Sam Raimi is so freaking good. I'm really excited to see what he does. Because he's like, to me, he feels like the original independent director, you know, doing Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. And then Evil Dead 2 is basically his remake of Evil Dead because he didn't like some things.
Honestly, like even For Love of the Game has just like awesome bits to it, you know? Quick and the Dead rules. That movie rocks socks, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise.
Leonardo DiCaprio is so good in that movie. I mean, I'm not even a Sharon Stone fan, but I love that movie with her in it. And you know, that whole scene with Gene Hackman and Leonardo DiCaprio going head to head.
And I'll tell you, and like that Oz movie he made, like there are some parts. It's not a good movie, but there were some bits.
Yeah.
Is
that the one with James Franco?
Yeah.
Was that was Raimi?
I'm almost certain it was.
Wow.
Because I feel like that's why I saw it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I like James Franco, but man, when you go watch a James Franco movie, you're just watching James Franco.
When he does not care, when he cares, it's awesome. Like 127 hours, he's great. Yeah. I just tried to listen to his audiobook of Slaughterhouse-Five, which is my favorite book of all time, and he's so bored.
Oh, really?
And it's like, dude, it's Slaughterhouse-Five. What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And now let's cut it now because we're starting to talk shit about people, and that shouldn't happen.
It's gonna go down real quick.
And another thing about. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you taking the time and giving me all that. Damn, you gave me 2 hours, which is stupendous. You can't believe it.
Thank you, man.
These out longer. If I see McLeod's name on there, I'm just like.
It's a night. We're making an evening of it. No, right? Thank you for having us. Like, especially movies of this size, we live and die by word of mouth. And so anytime honestly, anytime somebody wants to talk about it, it feels like Christmas. So we really appreciate you taking the time.
It's great. Yeah. So if people out there know, go to arrow-player.com and like Adam said at the beginning of the show, $4.99 a month. And there's a promo code and you can get that half off.
Yep. Arrow UK launch, all caps.
What was it again?
Arrow UK launch.
Then you're getting half off. I mean, that's amazing. And the first movie on there that you should watch is A Ghost Waits. It's fantastic. You guys, you can tell you guys had a lot of fun making it. Actually, before I let you go, McLeod, I got to ask you one question.
Yeah.
In the scene where you're putting together your utility belt in the kitchen, you drop the knife or you drop the hammer.
Uh-huh.
Was that intentional or was that like, oh my God, and then you actually caught it and then you put it back because you had this look on your face like, did I just mess that up? Either way, it's amazing.
That was not intentional. I don't think it was, at least. I think I was trying to like give Jack like he does this all the time and like he's got skills and like I just whacked myself in the chest and like and it was because I was like it was a hammer. It dropped right on the guy's counter and like he's been so gracious with his house and like I was afraid that I had like, oh great, like he's been
I legit laughed out loud. When that happened, I was like,
messed up his counter. Yeah, but it totally works.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We'll be chatting soon.
Yeah, sounds good.